Good morning, Mr. Barber students. Real quick announcement for the seniors. Please keep in mind today's the last day you can turn anything in that's going to count. I will be doing the preliminary grading, filling out of grades today. And then tomorrow morning when I get up at my usual 4:30, 5 a.m., I will check to see if anything else was turned in after I go to bed tonight. And any grade changes that causes will go into effect, but otherwise your grades are pretty much going to be in. Sophomores, you only got till Monday the 25th. Excuse me. Alright, so another quick one, guys, as I know I've actually given you less stuff to do, but that's in large part because I have more stuff to do in the back end as the year winds down. I got to make sure all the paperwork's taken care of, and so on and so forth. So, a couple things in the news, and these are one of these is a story you may have come across. One of these is a slightly smaller story, and that's what we're going to start with, which is that Florida and Georgia both are facing scrutiny over their COVID-19 data reporting. What that basically means, guys, not that it's a long article here, but what that essentially means is that both of these states have had accusations leveled against them by scientists or data engineers of various kinds that the way they are reporting their infection rates, their hospitalization rates, and their death counts possibly are questionable. And it's worth noting that both of these states have governors that worked very hard to downplay the COVID-19 problems. Both of them have governors who have been caught in other scandals before, especially the Georgia governor, who has been sued and may actually still be an ongoing lawsuit over possible election fraud that was used in order for him to win. So again, these are both states with governors who have slightly sketchy political histories and a potentially loose relationship with facts sometimes. Whether or not it turns out to be the case, we'll have to wait and see with more reporting investigation. But notably, that is going on. The big story that I'm sure you came across, but for those who somehow didn't, the president announced that he is taking hydroxychloroquine, excuse me, as a preventative for COVID-19. Now, keep in mind, there's a couple problems with this. The first is that no study at all that's been published anywhere that I'm aware of has suggested that it works to prevent the infection, and more so the studies that did test its effect found that it didn't have an effect on people's infections, recovery, or survivability. In fact, it actually lowered it because these drugs, when taken, can cause things like heart arrhythmia, which is especially a problem for people who are overweight, which leads to a whole nother thing going on in the news that I'm not even going to get to. Notably, what this article points out is that the president is doing this, or at least claiming that he's taking this drug, despite the fact that every study says it's not a viable drug or treatment, and he apparently has named them as Trump enemy statements. So this is part of the kind of ongoing deep state conspiracy theory stuff that if someone doesn't agree with you, it must be because they are your political enemy and not just because it's basic facts. Speaking of politics and basic facts, for my Econ Gov kids, actually, excuse me, this would technically be for my world history kids because this ties into globalism again. So anti-China sentiment is on the rise. The United States relationship with China has always been complicated post-World War II because they make so much of our stuff. This, by the way, picture in Tiananmen Square. I've actually been here some years back. You can't really tell, but this portrait is enormous. The angle doesn't do it justice, but it's just giant image of Chairman Mao just staring at you when you're there. So the American relationship with China always been a little fudgy because politically they are very much our rivals, if not outright enemies sometimes, but economically we are completely dependent on them because they make so much of our stuff because of how we've structured our economy. And American sentiment towards China has always had kind of a roller coaster depending on the decade or what's going on internationally, and we are seeing a backlash in the global connections to China right now as a result of both, factual issues with the Chinese government hiding how bad it was for a time because, like all authoritarian leaders, they don't want to admit when they've screwed something up. And we now have Trump and Biden, the two presidential nominees, basically attacking each other by arguing, no, you're softer, no, you're softer, no, you're more sympathetic. So the argument now is that the worst candidate is the one who is on the friendliest terms with China, which again is a complicated issue, despite what, Americans' propensity for wanting simple, dumb answers. It's complicated because politically, yes, they are a problem. Economically, we are dependent on them. All right, this one is for the Econ Gov kids. So Michigan, which is a major swing state, battleground state, has officially said that they are going to send absentee ballot applications by mail to everybody. This is so that people can exercise their constitutional right to vote without endangering their health. Now, there is a big pushback, and this article talks about it, how a lot of Republicans, not Democrats, but Republicans across the country, including the president, have said that they don't want mail-in ballots because supposedly they are likely to have voter fraud. Tremendous potential for voter fraud according to the president. Now, keep this in mind. This website, The Hill, is a right-leaning website, but they are center-right. They're not like alt-right, lunatic white supremacist. But even they point out there is no evidence that voting by mail is more vulnerable to fraud than any other method of voting. Or, and this is important because several Republicans have actually admitted out loud that they don't want more people to vote because the more people that vote, the less likely it is they'll win. According to The Hill, there is no major evidence that it favors one party over another, which is true because you have rural people that tend to vote Republican, that have trouble accessing in-person voting, and you have poor people in urban areas that often have trouble accessing voting, and they tend to vote Democrat. So it really is not as one-sided in the voting terms, but it is telling, or interesting at least, that one party genuinely admits publicly that they're concerned that if more people vote, they don't win. So take of that what you will. Alright guys, and lastly, this turned out longer than I thought it was going to be. I have, since we only have 3 of these videos left, a recommendation for you. This is one of my favorite games of the last, decade. This game is older than I thought it was. This is a game I'm probably going to replay at some point during this quarantine summer, once I get through my backlog. But yeah, this game, Bastion by Supergiant Games, is a absolutely gorgeous game, both visually and in sound design. The music to this is fantastic. It's a pretty short game. I want to say my first playthrough, I think I beat it in like 6-7 hours, something like that. But absolutely gorgeous game. And like most things that I read, watch, and play, it has a delightfully melancholic plot and tone. Okay. Alright guys, that is it for today.